Hello, this video is in review of the exercise due for Unit 7. I'm going to give you just a little starter support for this video. If you have questions or anything further, please come see me in my office hours. I'm happy to help you in there. But in the end, you really want this exercise to look just as it does in this layout. The supporting resources that I provided are the actual text and then some instructions. So if you take a look at the instructions, they are step by step, working with styles. I went through, you've got pretty much everything in a step-by-step format here, which you can print out or view on a different device while you're working. Okay, so I'm going to keep those over to the side because we are going to use those. And the next part is you want to download this text. One way to do is just click on, go ahead and open it. And then once you're in there, you notice there's really, oops, computer wants to update. Once you open it, you notice that there's really no title. That's fine. We still want to select all. Control A, we want to copy, Control C, shut that document down. And now we're going to create our own InDesign document. You can follow those step-by-step instructions, which we will be doing for the most part. File, new document. And if you take a look, it does say to launch InDesign, change the horizontal and vertical rule increments to inches. Of course, that's always desired. You can do that in preferences, or you can do that right here in the new document window. I'm going to change it to inches. We're going to let default to 8.5 by 11. A lot of times it might say facing pages. Make sure that is not clicked. We're going to keep it at 1 page, and then it tells us that it wants 3 columns, gutters 1/4 inch, and margins 1/2 inch. So I'll take a look. My columns are at 3, gutters 0.25, 1/4 inch, margins are 1/2 inch. Go ahead and do create. And you'll notice we've got a bleed even, we've got our margin, we've got our columns. Obviously these portions do not print. These are all things that are just invisible in our document to help us work within a grid setting. So what I'm going to do now is I still have that copy in my queue in my pasteboard here for the t-text. So I'm going to place that in first. You want to go to your type tool. I'm just going to go ahead and kind of find where I might think it goes and create an invisible box there. And now my cursor's blinking up top. I'm going to paste what I copied from that document, that Word document over. So Control V, and there it is. Now at least I have all of my text in this body area. It actually tells you to start by doing the title. We'll do that next. You could have done that first. That's fine. I'm going to grab that type tool again. I'm going to go up here all the way over. Let go. And then it says type Expedition Tea Company in the text frame. You want to make sure that that X and Y, when you are over here, you want to make sure that when you're dragging, the X and Y are as close to 0.5 as possible. It's just a way to keep our coordinates and our bounding boxes on the page as close as possible for this exercise. So I'll go ahead and put my cursor back in there in that box, and then it tells me that I want to write Expedition Tea Company. And obviously it's very small, so you want to select it all, and then you want to look at what it's telling you. Times New Roman, bold italic, 36 points. start typing in Times New Roman. We want it bold, italic, and we want it 36 points. I think it was Garamond, and that's what it looks like in the example. But Garamond usually isn't as universal as Times New Roman, and I found that with some of my students in previous classes. So I'm just going to keep it at Expedition T. I'm just going to keep it at the Times New Roman for the Expedition T company title. Okay, so we want to make sure it looks like it says that it's center this text horizontally and vertically. So center it. We'll do that. And then if you go to Object Text Frame Options, we want to make sure that this vertical justification now is also in center. Say OK. You can see how it sort of centers your text right within that bounding box. Okay, the next thing you want to do, it tells you that you want to drag guides out. You can certainly do that. I already placed the t-text in so that we are on track to having all this pasted in properly. I already pasted it in quickly. So we want to now start to create paragraph and character styles. But if you take a look, we really want to have 3 columns if you compare it to the other ones, the examples that I have in this week's unit. We want to have 3 columns. So I want to use my selection tool to select on that body copy. These are 2 separate bounding boxes, remember. And then I want to go to Object Text Frame Options. There's so many things we can do in the text frame options, but one of them is to add an additional 2 columns to make it a 3 column. Say OK. And now we have 3 columns. So we're getting closer actually. And so if that's the case, we want to make sure that we save our document. So File, Save As. You could have saved it right when you opened it, changed the name, but we're going to do that right about now. So obviously I want you guys to save it with your last name. For example, mine would be Hughes, but I'm just using last name underscore. I'm going to do Unit 7. I don't think there's any other. Yeah. So Unit 7 is example of our exercise for this week. And I will save it somewhere that's very comfortable for me to remember where it's at, and I won't lose it. So go ahead and save. Okay. All right. And the next portion of this little exercise is to drag out our panels for character and paragraph panel. If you don't know where that's at, make sure you go to Window, Styles, Character, Window, Styles, Paragraph. Now they are linked, which is great. You can work with them one-on-one when you build these styles for this document. Okay, and I believe we're on sort of Object Text Frame Options, columns 3. Create a paragraph style named Ttype with the following attributes. All right. Okay, paragraph style, we're going to do New Style, double click, Ttype, okay, and then it tells us the attributes, Times New Roman, italic, 18 point, okay, and that's under basic character formats. So we have Ttype, make sure you're not under general, you're on basic character formats. You want to do this to be Times New Roman. I think it said italic. Let's double check. Times New Roman, italic, size 18, space before paragraph, 0.125. So this size is going to be 18. And then the space before, we're going to do in indents and spacing. Space before is 0.125. And say space, say OK. So the space before is nice because that is when we have a paragraph and then we have a space before the paragraph. If I go back here, if you take a look real quick, it gives us a little bit of space between each of those paragraphs. It's a little more than the normal leading within that within the paragraph itself. So it's a really good practice is to add a space before paragraph, and it automatically do it after you hit return when you're designing. Okay, so that's number 5. Number 6, now we're going to create a paragraph style that is called T description. So now we're going to go back down, paragraph style, double click, T description. Okay, and now this one is T description, font, same font, Times New Roman, regular, 10, 14 leading. .10 type, 14 leading, and then we'll go ahead and just say okay. All right. You might see things start to change here. All right. Next, we're going to create a character style named T-name with Times New Roman, italic, 12 point, and then vertical scale. So character style called T-name. We want it Times New Roman, italic, 12 point. And then after the italic 12 point, it has us doing vertical scale at 150%, and that's in advanced. Vertical scale 150, and then say okay. And you can see some other things are happening here. It's automatically adjusting to what we're giving it, and we're going to change that in a little bit. Next, apply the paragraph style Ttype to the following subheaders, all the like oolong T's, the descriptions. So we're going to go to, is it the Ttype? We want to go to Ttype. So one way to do this is you can select that whole and you can go to Ttype. Looks like these are all selected. Another thing that I like to do too, if this starts to be kind of wonky on me and changing while I'm developing these, go ahead and delete it. Click off of it entirely and bring your text right back in. And I did it specifically for that reason, because a lot of my students do that unknowingly, and then they end up getting frustrated. And so this is a great way to kind of avoid that. So I've brought them back in, and obviously you go up to Object, Text Frame Options, like we did earlier, and you add in those columns and say okay again. And now we can start to, this is really big, but if you bump this down to, let's just say 12 point for right now. And remember, in your output, there's additional text there. So you want to make sure that when you're adding all these T types that things change. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. And if you see a little plus there, you want to hold down the Option key and click on it. And it will actually give you what that is, what we've applied, Ttype. Okay. And so go down, you've got black tea, green tea, and I'm holding down Option when I click. You don't want those to be a modified paragraph style. Oolong tea, white tea. So I'm going to go through and do some of these, and I'm going to see you in the next video. Continuation in the next video.